Welcome to Heroes and Droids, your guide to movies and TV shows about superheroes, sci-fi, Disney, and action, from Marvel to DC, from Star Wars to Star Trek, from James Bond to the Fast and the Furious. We will review theatrical films and streaming delights you care about most. And this week we're reviewing The Tomorrow War, streaming on Amazon Prime Video. I am your host, Doc Rotten, and joining me tonight is very special guest host from all the way over from Decades of Horror, the classic era and the 70s. Are you on the 80s as well?
Yes, I am.
You are on everything.
I'm on all the decades.
You're on all the decades. You span decades and decades and decades.
I am forever.
And of course, you are a comic book artist, and we generally see you when we do the Marvel films. You couldn't make it to Black Widow because, well, you weren't able to see it in time.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it yet.
We weren't patient enough to wait. But you did graciously tackle The Tomorrow War and are joining me to review it tonight. And I am very, very happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here. And
I hope to see you more, because now that the theaters are open and all those backlog superhero films are going to be hitting us month after month after month. I mean, you and I could get together and just talk about the upcoming superhero movies for about an hour.
We need to do that. We need to do that.
I think we just invented a new show. So we a new episode. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to give our first impression of Tomorrow War. Then we're going to talk about it. The first impression will be spoiler free, and we just jump into the discussion. It will go into spoilers. We'll give you a heads up, and then we'll wrap things up with our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. But what are we talking about? We're talking about The Tomorrow War, starring Chris Pratt. Now, this is streaming on Prime Video, Amazon, and it is began streaming on July 2nd. It's directed by Chris McKay and written by Zach Dean. The cast includes not only Chris Pratt, but Yvonne Strahovski from Chuck, woohoo! J.K. Simmons, Betty Gilpin, Sam Richardson, Jasmine Mathews, Edwin Hodge, and Lynn Rajskub. A family man is drafted into a fight in a future war where the fate of humanity relies on its ability to confront the past. And there's our little future war villain down there in the bottom. All right,
not so little.
Not so little. Very sizes, but mean little bastards. All right, Chad, yes, sir. What was your first impression of The Tomorrow War?
Well, I had no intentions of watching it.
Oh my.
I don't know. It just something about it didn't grab me. To you, I think you gave me a few choices of movies to try and catch. So this was the most accessible one. So I go in to watch it, and the biggest vibe I get off of it, and we talked about this beforehand, was big, overblown 90s action sci-fi flick.
Yes.
And if you're looking for something like that, this is your movie. Corny dialogue, bombastic musical score, melodramatic acting, and all that is present here. And but I didn't hate it. I did not hate it, because I'm a big fan of those kind of movies. Sort of an Independence Day vibe with time travel and that kind of sci-fi tropes in there. So I didn't hate it, but it's not a perfect film at all. I will get into it, I guess, as we go.
Yes, we will.
But first, as far as first impressions go, I didn't mind it. It could have been a wee bit shorter on the runtime. It was a wee bit long, I thought. I think it was at 2 hours and 17 minutes or something like that.
Yes.
It
quite the morning to watch it.
Yeah, it kind of dragged a bit in a few areas and seemed disjointed in a few places and stuff like that. But having said that, first impression is I really didn't hate it. I was just kind of on the fence about it.
On the fence. Wow. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, and it is a little too long, but it has a lot to say. It has a lot, it's telling a very big.
But did it say it well?
Well, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here
for.
So before I get into my first impression, let's just give a little background. This is a Paramount Pictures film. It was supposed to be released last Christmas. Of course, COVID came along and blew out the plans for a lot of films. This was supposed to be a pretty large release, right? The Paramount said nope. They sold it to Prime Video for $200 million.
Wow.
Cut their losses and run. They probably did not make a lot of money on that because there's a lot of special effects in this film. And sometimes they're really good.
Yeah.
And other times, well, they are what they are. But, there's a big scope here. So this was going to be, a tentpole film for Chris Pratt, a lead film for him, and it's got, things happen. So now here it is, July, summer, and we're watching it on Amazon Prime Home Video, which is interesting that all these films are heading to streaming. Some of them are rather successful. I think HBO Max, if you ask me, is having the best results because of the dual thing. Mm-hmm. Even though that's only going to be, a temporary thing. I'm really fascinated by that one. But all that aside, the film itself is what you're here for. This is basically one of those 90s monster movie, overblown big, invasion films. And for what it is, it's rather successful at it. Mm-hmm. They go off on this, it has these big concepts, right? It has this big concept about being, the future. They have a connection from one spot to another, and that's the only connection they have. So the future, 30 years in the future, come back to our present, if you will. And, they're running low on population because the aliens are killing it. And they basically gather up people to fight this war. That's the plot. It's a really interesting idea. The problem is that we've seen these monsters in movie after movie after movie. There are some innovations to them for this, the spikes and everything. And but it just felt, after you see the first of them, you're like, okay, we're in another quarantine movie, right? Or another, not quarantine, but Cloverfield film. It just feels like that same kind of style of Alien. We need a new Alien style. Yeah, somebody's got to innovate that vision of what the vicious alien will look like. It's getting a little redundant. There are other problems with it, like humor. There's good humor in this, and then there's overblown humor, and the action's fairly good. The problem is it's not necessarily a bad film. Mm-hmm. It is quite enjoyable. It is overlong. It's trying. I almost enjoyed the last 30 minutes of it more than the entire future part. Yeah. Just, I'll tell you what the last 30 minutes in the spoilers, but the last 30 minutes of it kind of wrap up the whole shebang. And it kind of, the problem is that's the best part, but it also undermines everything else that went on by.
It did.
And it makes it like, well, what if that, but then nothing, but it makes your head start to spin about what would happen. But whatever, that's the problem with time travel movies, right? It's fairly competently directed. Chris Pratt is really good as the lead. J.K. Simmons is amazing in his supporting role. Mm-hmm. Betty Gilpin gets shafted really hard in this. It's kind of unfortunate how little of a part she has in this. She's much better than what this film gives her. I'm frustrated. You can hear it. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. I'm kind of like,
I can,
because I want to like this film a lot more than I did, but I'm glad I didn't hate it like a lot of people are online. There are many people online that are really bashing this, and then there are some that are actually really for it. But I think most people are in the middle of the road for this, and that's a frustrating thing for us. As you know, we come in here and review films. When you love a film, there's a lot to say about it. When you hate a film, there's a lot to say about it. But when it just kind of falls flat in the middle, it's really hard to gauge your enthusiasm versus your disappointment.
Yeah. Well, when you're in the middle like that, it's hard to gauge. I mean, like you said, you love it, you hate it, you hate it. When you're in the middle, you find yourself going, woulda, coulda, shoulda. They should have did this. They should, instead of being wrapped up in the story, you're going, I would have did this, or I would have done that, or.
Right. So that's our first impression. So we're going to dive into spoilers because anything we talk about in here is very spoilery. So if you haven't seen the film, it's on Amazon Prime. Go check it out, and then come back here and watch the rest. But take
3 hours out of your day.
Hit the subscribe button first. All right, so so the Yvonne character, basically his daughter is in the future, and I loved her in Chuck. She's fantastic in Chuck. She's struggling to get a good role since then. This isn't it, unfortunately. Although she's fine in it, she's perfectly fine, but it just doesn't have anything for her really. I mean, when she's introduced, she's basically a voice on the other side of the comm. Even though we get to see her, she's just a voice, and it was like, that is the worst introduction of a character ever in a film. It is horrible. It is absolutely. It should not have been the person on. She shouldn't have been the person on the mic. Should have been somebody else, and then she should have been introduced later. Again, we're back at shoulda, woulda, coulda, right?
Yeah.
It just really sucked all the energy out of her character, and she never really regained it.
Yeah.
So that they spend a lot of time in the future, a good portion of the film, and I think a lot of that could have been cut.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of that been cut.
A lot of it.
I don't think they needed to even have a lot of that action scene, even though it's a really fun action scene where all the aliens attack their outpost.
Yeah.
I
agree. The more interesting stuff happened after he returned from the future, or the more interesting concepts, I should say, to me, where they found the spaceship, which they totally ripped off from the Thing.
Oh my God, did they ever?
And they found the pilots, and then it turns out the aliens are actually cargo or a weapon or something that they were carrying. It would have been a more interesting idea, I think, to show who the pilots were and just like the Thing, who was piloting the ship, what are their motivations, why are they doing this, for what reason and stuff. And instead you sort of get these generic, mindless monsters.
Yeah.
Not mindless, they were pretty intelligent.
Well, they were hive mind.
Yeah. So, but to me, it would have been a more interesting thing to find out why those pilots were carrying those, or if they crash landed, or if they brought them here to wipe the planet out, and fought those aliens instead of the cargo.
Yeah.
But woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you there. Although I did enjoy all the stuff. I mean, I enjoyed the one that gets away and they have to find it, and what they have to do when they battle it. That had more stakes than all the part in the future, which is supposed to be the stakes of the entire movie, right? But I just never felt the stakes there because it felt already lost, right?
Yeah,
you felt like
it negated the whole point of, I guess, getting the serum that they used against the creatures at the end, but it seemed like if that was the goal, or if she knew that she had that, it just
What?
seemed like the whole battle, the battling.
They could have just sent
creatures.
people back. They didn't have to bring anybody forward.
Yeah, just send everybody back. And but I don't know. See, this is where we find ourselves when we don't like it or don't hate it.
It's also a problem of time travel movies, right?
Yeah.
Because time travel movies make your brain think, well, why didn't you just, you got this whole movie that's, bring people to fight the war, but you have this weapon that you can send back to prevent the war.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What are you doing?
Why are you still grabbing people from the
what
past?
Are you doing?
Why are you doing
that? And so, I mean, literally, here's a question for you. If we had seen Chris Pratt go off into the future, fight the one batch of aliens, grab the thing, and then go back, because of some stupid reason that they could have invented. And that was it. Just him go in, go through one set of creatures, get the, and then go back and then have the ending. Would it have been a better movie?
I think it would have been a little more lean story-wise. I think it would have made a leaner story and not as convoluted a story as most time travel movies get to be. Where Chris Pratt goes into the future and we don't see what happens,
right?
And then he comes back like half cyborg or whatever. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that would be awesome.
That's just me.
He did say I'll be back in the movie, though. By the way,
yeah,
if you didn't.
But I think it would have made a leaner, meaner movie if he had just came back and said, we got to find the spaceship and that kind of thing, or just giving glimpses or something like that. But it seemed like him coming back with the weapon, and it sort of negated all that, of him fighting and the creatures and the action scenes and stuff like that. Rendered it null and void, I guess.
Yeah,
almost.
The problem is well, here's what I think the problem is with me, where I can't really get on board with this movie, is that this movie needs to have wow moments, like, oh my god, wow, right? But it didn't have that. I would say, like, with the aliens, like the whole female alien thing did not work for me. I mean, the idea, the concept of it worked, but the design of the female wasn't striking enough.
Yeah,
I think,
and we've seen it before.
Yeah, and the only time I was wowed, and it's not even a Owen Wilson wow. It's a very little wow. Was when they first see the alien, when they shine the light on it and it's in the dark, and that was much more menacing.
Yeah.
Than when they were bouncing down the street, and there have been a plethora of these movies, right? Since in the past, since I guess in I-4, right? Since Independence Day. And this one doesn't stand out. Yeah. It doesn't stand out.
I agree with you. They missed an opportunity to make these, because I agree that one scene where they shine the light on it and it's just clacking its mouth open and shut. That was scary. Bringing those creatures out into the open and into the light, I thought hurt it a little bit too. Beautifully designed monsters, and special effects were good on the monsters, but I think it would have served it better if they had kept the monster in the shadow a little bit more, made him a little more scary, which could have differentiated it a little bit from all the other copies of this kind of film, or you know what I mean?
I mean, there's a point where they do, the flying squirrel mode, where they go like this. And and I was like, that should have been awesome. And it was like, I mean, I was much more impressed with when they started coming out of the sacks, when they were, because there was a race, right? They had to get them before they hatched, and then they started hatching. And it was kind of like, what do you do? And how are you going to, solve it now? And then you just didn't feel that, because it just felt like It was,
Well,
I don't know.
You'd seen what the creatures are capable of beforehand, so that you knew what they were when they were in the sacks.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Pratt and all his people knew what they were in the sacks, so it really wasn't that big of a deal to see them start busting loose from the sacks and coming after it, because they're just going to get chased like they were 40 minutes ago in the film. That should have been a real gotcha moment. Shouldn't
it?
Yeah, that should have been a gotcha moment, like when in Aliens, when they first realized, hey, there's more than one of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of them here. That was a real, because up to that point in the Alien series, we'd only seen one alien in Ridley Scott's, and then in this one, and then you realize there's hundreds of them.
Yeah, but we did see all the eggs. We knew there were lots of eggs, but we only saw one thing, right?
Yeah, right.
But oh man, all right. So I think we set it up. Let's go ahead and wrap our review up. Let's give our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. And if you're listening and enjoying this review, we want to thank you for hanging out with us. We hope you enjoy many others that we have on the site, anywhere from movies like this to covering The Mandalorian to Loki. And we also have a plethora, we'll use that word again, of horror content. Like
you have to hold your pinky up when you say that word.
Plethora. Chad, of course, is on many of the Decades of Horror episodes where we cover the older material, and then we have H&R and Gruesome that covers the current material. So there's a lot of good stuff on there. We hope you enjoy it. If you do like it, hit the subscribe button or share with a friend, and that does wonders. It's free and easy. And leave a comment. Let us know how wrong we are about this movie down below. All right, Chad, you were up first. What is your final thoughts, your score 1 to 5, and your favorite scene?
My final thoughts is if you're looking for a way to just burn 2 hours on
2.5,
2.5 hours on an action-y monster movie that you've seen maybe many times before. This is a good time burner. You don't have to think too much about it, and everything. So, I'm still in the middle, Doc. I don't know. I'm still in the middle. My favorite scene. Are we doing favorite scenes?
You're doing favorite scene and score 1
and score. Okay. Favorite scene is the splat. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, that was awesome, actually. That's one of my favorites. Yeah.
The whole thing at the end and then the splat at the end is very satisfying.
I even texted you that when it happened.
Yeah, you did. And I have to give this one a 2.5, maybe.
Straight up the middle. Wow.
2.5.
Straight up the middle.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Okay. So the film is flawed. It's too long. It's, the concepts are high concepts and really interesting, but kind of bring forth a lot of like conflicts of storyline and, what a lot of time travel has, right? It's hard to do time travel and not bring those elements up. Chris Pratt's fine in the lead. J.K. Simmons is better in the supporting role. The monsters, unfortunately, are a little overfamiliar. They're really well done, though.
Mm-hmm.
And even when they're a whole bunch of them doing, the more there are, the less rendered they are, and you can start seeing the flaws in the CGI. It has that like, what's that the World War Z thing where it has that kind of problem with it. But when there are a few of them, I mean, it's really well done.
Mm-hmm.
The action scenes are really well done action scenes. The problem is it doesn't add up to anything. It's too long. The best moments are more intimate, and we don't get enough of those. The humor's all over the place. There's no real urgency to it all, and there should be, right?
Mm-hmm.
The wow moments don't quite get the elevation that you want. So I'm really, like I said, really torn. I'm happy that I got to see it on just the home screen, and because I think that actually made it a little more palatable, to be honest with you. Yeah. And I think if I saw this in the theater, I I think I would have been a little more critical of the CGI when it wasn't 100%, right? Because it would be larger that it wasn't 100%. I feel like, and I think it would have felt even longer in the theater, right?
Yeah.
So it's really frustrating, but I am giving it a slightly better score at 3.
Okay.
I think for what it is, where it is, I think it's a perfectly fine, fun summer action film to watch. But if you have this and something else is, there are better options this year. So, oh man, and it's kind of a disappointment because I think they want this to be, I'm sure they want to have this character reappear somewhere. I wonder if this is successful. How do you gauge that? Because
it's saying it's the #1 streaming movie in America right now.
It's got the right things in place to do that. So, all right. Well, that's our review for the Tomorrow War, streaming now on Amazon Prime Video. Check it out and let us know what you think down below. Chad, it was so much fun having you here. And yes, we are doing the superhero countdown in the next week or so.
Awesome.
We will figure this out. We have to do it.
Just let me know. I'll be here.
You'll be here.
I'll be here.
All right. Thank you for joining me, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's say good night.
Good night.
Good night.